Chapter 7. The Return of Knowledge. After the development of the airways, a new phase of human development began. The systematic return of knowledge. Humans had learned from the age of silence that experience without record was fleeting. Writing had returned, cities were interconnected, and now an era emerged in which knowledge was not only collected, but also understood, applied, and systematically expanded. The return of knowledge first manifested in the cities. Libraries were established, initially modest halls of wood, stone, and clay, later expanded into complex centers housing thousands of tablets, manuscripts, symbols, and artifacts. These halls served not only for storage but also for observation, analysis, and teaching. Young chroniclers were trained to preserve, interpret, and disseminate knowledge. Each city developed its own methodology, but the principles were the same everywhere: patience, mindfulness, respect for nature and humanity, and the commitment to take responsibility. Humans began systematically studying relics of the old world. Machines whose purpose had long been forgotten were disassembled, studied, and understood. Their mechanisms served as teaching tools and inspiration for new developments. Every artifact, every notation became a key to understanding the principles of the ancients: stability, energy, harmony, and observation. In the process, people learned that knowledge alone did not mean power. Its application had to be deliberate, tested, and in harmony with nature. The return of knowledge led to a blossoming of the sciences. Astronomy, mathematics, medicine, agriculture, and hydrology were systematically documented and taught. Star charts were created, annual cycles precisely recorded, medicinal plants catalogued, and waterways mapped. Observations were recorded on tablets and in early libraries so that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. Every discovery, every observation was discussed, tested, and further developed. At the same time, a philosophical dimension emerged. Knowledge was not understood as an end in itself, but as a responsibility toward the community and nature. Every teacher, chronicler, or observer recognized that their records would shape future generations. Mistakes, negligence, or misuse of knowledge could have far-reaching consequences. Thus, an ethos of learning, verifying, and passing on knowledge arose, a moral foundation shaping both the science and culture of the cities. The return of knowledge also led to the standardization and networking of education. Young generations were trained in the air script, learned mathematics, natural observation, craftsmanship, and philosophy. Exchange programs between cities were established. Observers traveled, experimented, learned from one another, and disseminated their findings. Every journey, every lesson, every record contributed to making the cities nodes of a growing, living network of knowledge and experience. Furthermore, the return of knowledge influenced practical ways of life. Agriculture, water management, construction, and urban planning were systematically improved. Experiments were conducted, observations documented, errors analyzed. Knowledge was not seen as a possession, but as a living resource, shared, tested, and applied to ensure the survival and prosperity of all. The return of knowledge marked a turning point in the Third Age, from individual experience to collective, systematic wisdom. It laid the groundwork for later halls of knowledge, schools, observatories, libraries, and scientific centers. It connected the achievements of the Age of Silence with the possibilities of writing, cities, and the airways. Knowledge was thus not only preserved, but made alive, dynamic, and socially embedded. Every discovery, every analysis, every record was a step toward leading humanity from the ruins of the old world into a future in which observation, reflection, and responsibility were central values. The Third Age learned once again that knowledge is only valuable when it is understood, applied, and passed on, a lesson that would shape generations to come. Chapter 8. The Lessons of the Ancients. With the systematic return of knowledge began an era that would come to be known as the Lessons of the Ancients. The remnants of the old world, ruins, machines, artifacts, writings, and symbols, stood no longer as silent witnesses of past power, but as living instructors, guiding humanity toward the understanding of principles, wisdom, and limits. The cities gathered these relics, deciphering their meaning through the air script. Observers scrutinized the mechanisms of machines, the architecture of ancient structures, the organization of long-forgotten libraries and archives. Every detail was documented, compared, and tested for practical application. The ancients were not revered as infallible gods, but studied as teachers whose successes and failures alike held lessons. Each machine left behind in the age of silence, each recorded experience, revealed the intricate balance between humanity, nature, and technology. These lessons inspired profound reflection on power and responsibility. People came to understand that greatness and strength without wisdom were ephemeral. Cities that relied solely on raw resources, military might, or isolated technology had perished in the old world. Chroniclers traced these patterns, distilled guiding principles, and crafted ethical frameworks that governed both social cohesion and the stewardship of the natural world. The lessons of the ancients also emphasized patience and careful observation. The ancients had too often ignored nature, misjudged catastrophes, or depleted resources. From these errors, the people of the Third Age learned that every action carries consequences that echo across generations. Sustainable agriculture, water management, urban planning, and social order were all informed by the study of these ancient missteps. Philosophical inquiry, too, was deepened. The ancients taught that knowledge without context is perilous, technology without responsibility can bring ruin, and true power springs from understanding the intricate web of interconnections. The chronicles record lengthy debates among observers, teachers, and leaders, who interpreted, tested, and wove the principles of the ancients into the fabric of daily life. This collective reflection shaped not only laws but culture, ethics, and the spiritual life of society. The ancients also inspired the creation of the halls of knowledge. Libraries became centers of research, mechanics, astronomy, and philosophy. These halls were designed not only for protection, but for inspiration, expansive chambers for experimentation, observational platforms, forums for debate, and walls adorned with symbols embodying the wisdom and experiences of eras long past. Education, too, was transformed. Youth were taught not only crafts, writing, and mathematics, but the disciplines of observation, analysis, and responsibility. Tales of fallen cities, of ignored natural forces, and of misused machines became instructional narratives, linking ethical understanding with practical knowledge. The lessons of the ancients were not fixed. They evolved with the experiences of the Third Age. Each generation contributed new observations, discoveries, and interpretations, weaving them into the chronicles of the cities. Thus arose a living network of wisdom, intended to guide humanity across centuries. Ultimately, the lessons of the ancients marked the passage from the mere recovery of knowledge to a fully integrated culture of understanding. Technology, nature, society, and philosophy merged into a coherent system in which the principles of the ancients were taught, tested, and applied. The cities of the Third Age were no longer mere bastions of survival. They were living monuments to the enduring dialogue between past, present, and future. Chapter 9. The Halls of Knowledge. And it came to pass in the age when silence faded, that the halls of knowledge rose, not by chance, not by command of kings. They arose by the will of understanding. They were sanctuaries, they were living temples of mind and spirit. Each hall mirrored the city. Each hall reflected the soul. Observation, thought, and wisdom walked together there. They shaped men, they guided women, they taught the children and the elders alike. The halls reached to the sky. Light, air, and warmth were captured. Chambers shifted for all needs: teaching, labor, study, and preservation. Upon the roofs were platforms. Observatories opened to the heavens. Symbols of the ancients were everywhere, on walls, on floors, on pillars. Every step became a lesson, every gesture a code, truths of nature, laws of numbers, ways of right and justice. All generations entered as equals. The young with eyes like dawn, the elders tempered by years. They learned by seeing, by doing, by questioning. Every note was inscribed in air. Every truth was woven into the fabric of the city's wisdom. Life in the halls was a dance. Teachers, chroniclers, artisans, students, all moved together. Knowledge was not possession. It was a river, living, flowing, nourishing all. New truths were recorded, shared freely, mistakes were honored. They were lanterns in darkness. The halls were for creation. Machines of the ancients were studied, fields were tested, stars were mapped, herbs catalogued. Each hall was school, forge, temple, past met present, thought embraced deed, insight became tempered power. The halls shaped the city's soul. Ceremonies, debates, festivals, stories born from nature and humanity, music, painting, poetry, vessels of truth. Wisdom felt, not only known. The halls were nodes of a great web. Rivers, roads, skies connected them. Chroniclers traveled, they carried discoveries, tested truths, shared insight, knowledge pulsed. It was alive. It sustained the city as the heart sustains the body. Knowledge bore responsibility. Knowledge alone was not power, it was duty. Every record, every observation, every interpretation carried weight. True wisdom comes from patience, from careful thought, from righteous action. Mistakes were inscribed, studied, to guide generations yet unborn. The lessons of the ancients would not fade. And so the halls of knowledge stood, monuments of unity, humankind, nature, time, bridges spanning silence and script, cities and alliances, past and future. Each hall a mirror of the third age. Observation, learning, responsibility, wisdom converged. Humanity glimpsed the vast design of the world and rose toward understanding beyond measure.